wasn't. Look, this programme is all about facts, and you're wrong. I don't care whether you were in a crowded brown paper bag hung over a cesspit having cold poison for breakfast whilst your mum and dad danced on your grave. It wasn't a TV programme. It was a stage show for Amnesty International, not Monty Python. So get it right. Right. I don't know if it was his first or his second ball. It's that long ago, I'm sure even the policeman's forgotten. Anyway, strange you should mention it, because it is particularly apt for this programme. Because we are looking at a period when people really did get up 4 hours before they went to bed. The big cats earned a fortune, and the little cats, they worked themselves into the ground and got very, very little indeed. The Industrial Revolution, and this place is a microcosm of that era. Quarry Bank Mill, in style, in Cheshire. Now, what are we going to call the programme? Cotton Tales. Struth. Hey, it's just like poo sticks, this, isn't it? Same sort of bridge, you know. Do you know, if you throw them in with a bit of a sort of twizzle, then they go faster and... Should we do the timeline? 1784, Samuel Gregg commences operations at Quarry Bank Mill. 1810, mine 1. A 10 horsepower side lever Bolton and Watt steam engine. 10 horsepower, put in 1810. In 1864, they built an on-site gasworks to give light not only to the mill, but to the village as well. And it did up until 1904. Talking of 1904, the water wheel is damaged irreparably. A little while later, 1939, Alec Gregg, the great-great-grandson of the original founder, gives the mill, the village, and 284 acres to the National Trust. Thank you very much. 20 years later, 1959, just then, they stopped making cotton here. Amazing. Right. Are you sitting comfortably? Well, I didn't mean it literally, did I? But as you're down there, I'll join you. In fact, I shall begin. Now, the Industrial Revolution. How do we sum it up in a nutshell? A change from an agriculturally based economy to an industrialised economy. You've been on the internet again, haven't you? Well, you're absolutely dead right. And one of the products that came out of that period was cotton. That was in the 18th century, and that was the first industrial revolution. The first. There have been many revolutions, you know. I mean, look at television. Look at yourself, for example. No, don't. Look, be careful with that. You dropped it. Pick it up and we'll start again. Right. Why did it all happen? Well, I'll tell you why it all happened. Because we were cash rich. Agriculture, we'd got it sewn up, and we'd made a fortune out of it. So when great inventors came along, like Watt, and like Arkwright, and like Hargreaves, we had the cash to back their inventions. And their inventions meant that people, workers, didn't just produce one item, they produced hundreds or thousands of items. That's what changed it all. Little places like Manchester and Birmingham suddenly became huge places. And very, very important. Britain became the workshop of the world. Now we need something that can show that time travel, put it all into a nutshell, that can run as a theme throughout the programme. You've got it, have you? From cradle to grave. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Well, not quite the cradle, but close. The apprentice's house. Now, we're 1830 now. One thing we had an awful lot of at that time was orphans. Sad, but true. And they were in workhouses up until the age of about 9, when they would come here as an apprentice, working in the mill. Very, very long hours, and in return, whilst they were serving their apprenticeship of 7 years, they would be given food, clothes, and a bed, which they would share with about 3 other people. What? It's a potty. It's a gazunder. I'm sorry, a gazunder. Because it goes under the bed. There would be 60 girls in this dorm. Mr. Gregg preferred girls because they didn't cause as much trouble as the lads. I know what he means. And there would be 100 apprentices in the house itself. This is the boys' dorm. They kept them separate for obvious reasons, and apparently it worked because there were very few unwanted pregnancies. Now, if you come from the boys' dorm, I can't imagine 40 boys being in there, can you? Up here, this is the treatment room. The doctor is recorded to have made many visits. In fact, there's a lovely little sort of doctor's note here. It says, Catherine Unwin, swelling of the leg. Said, let her take 2 of the pills which will be ordered the first thing each morning. Now, here are some of the doctor's bits and pieces. This is brimstone and treacle. It smells gorgeous, and you'd be given that for just about everything. It's a poultice. Lovely. These are, well, you'd have wrapped something very, very hot in that, and then the doctor would very nicely have applied it to your arm, burning you, causing a blister, and then you'd pop the blister, and that would let the devil out of your body. Yes, I think I'd have taken a pair of those to him as well. I don't want to think what he might... Oh, cutting your hair, I suppose. Not surprisingly, most of the kids that came in here sick stayed sick or snuffed it. Survival of the fittest. Right, up here, a storeroom and another room that has a very good story. One of the apprentices, a girl, ran away. And she was caught and brought back. And they locked her in here, shaved all of her hair off, and boarded up the windows. Nasty stuff. She went hysterical. Oi! Do you know why she went hysterical? Because about where you were standing, there was a dead body laid out to rest. Do you know, even in those days, they realised that perhaps that treatment was a little harsh, and 1 or 2 people wrote papers about it. Life was tough. When they came back from the mill, they had to work in the garden, clean out the loos, and then maybe they'd get a bit of food. The kitchen's next. Yes, you can come in. Oh, what a surprise. It's you. Welcome to the superintendent's room. You see, even down here in the lower quarters, there was upper class and lower class. This is where the upper class, the superintendent, would live. Nice little bit of pottery here. Faith, hope, and charity. You'd need it round here, believe me. So he was the boss that would look after the apprentices. And when it came to food time, foodie bits, it'd be through here. It's probably fair to say that it was wholesome and not a lot more. Some pretty fresh stuff done in the gardens. Lovely great big block of salt, taking little bits off there. You're supposed to do it over your shoulder, aren't you? And a huge great pot of porridge. No sugar, just salt and water. Please, sir, can I have some more? More? No, you can't. The girls would be expected to learn how to run a house, so they'd have all sorts of cleaning duties. They weren't educated. No need, really. Get the girlies looking after the house, and they'd do that in their spare time in the evening. You've done it again. Right, this is the school room. It's not the school, because that's in the village. And actually, it's still a school today. But this is the school room where the boys, not the girls, would come to learn a couple of nights a week. Now, baby ones, the younger ones, would use a sand tray like this, you see. and they'd write the names in it, or I plus Tim. I don't think so. I'll take the plus out. Thank you very much. And then as you got a little bit older, you'd use a slate like that. See, and write just about read it. Anyway, Tim is fab. Right, and then when you were dead old, you got to use the really posh stuff, like a quill. Ooh, look at this. I really can write my name. Now, they did this a couple of nights a week, but it probably wasn't very effective because there's records of children leaving here after 7 years still not being able to do their names. Spell such words as you cannot read, and then you will know them the next time you see them, like anti-disestablishmentarianism. Can you do that one? Thought not. Right, and here's the pulpit, where occasionally the Gregg family would preach from and do lessons from, right? And do you know, little boys used to run away from here, and 2 of them got as far away as Liverpool to find their families, and they got dragged back. Terrible. It's the end of the lesson. Now just a minute, before you touch anything, you don't know what you're doing. So stop. This is the weaving floor, driven by a line shaft, right the way down the floor, powering all of the separate machines. And skilled weavers operated those machines, like Mona. Now, I don't believe this, but you used to work these machines when they were steam-driven, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Okay.
So when was that? Not that long ago, clearly.
Well, it was quite a while back, 1949.
Really?
Yeah.
And we still had steam in the mills?
Steam power, and we had steam power in that mill as well, up to 1951.
Now, we've just been looking at the apprentices' apartments or house up the road. Would the apprentices come onto the floor with the weavers? Would they learn what the weavers did?
What they would do, they would probably carry in the weft, what the weaver puts inside the shuttle, filling the shuttles, sweeping the looms. And then gradually they'd work on the looms. When they could run the looms, then they would probably be walking around helping each weaver, and gradually, that is called tenting. And then gradually you would have a set of looms on the own.
Is that how you learnt?
No, actually I didn't learn that. That was before my time. But I did go like that, and I was put with a weaver. My mum taught me to learn. But after I'd been there for 6 weeks, because the training time for the weaving is 6 weeks.
Right.
After I was training time for 6 weeks, I would put on 2 looms.
Could you show me a shuttle?
Yes. That's the shuttle.
Now, I know it isn't one, but what was a kissing shuttle?
Well, the kissing shuttle was used before this one. This is a later shuttle. It was a lot smaller than this, same shape, but the thread was different. And the bobbin they used inside was different. But actually, this one now, which came later, to thread this, you just thread it through a cutter. But the original shuttle, the kissing shuttle on this loop, where you had to grab your weft into a bunch like that and suck it through the little hole.
That's why they were called kissing shuttles?
That's why it's called the kissing shuttle, and that's where they got all the cotton dust and the oils directly onto the looms.
Mona, you couldn't start the machines for me, could you?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Brilliant. So, you've seen what they do with the cotton, but do you know what it's like when it gets here? No, actually, that's a bobbin, and it's quite fine there. It actually comes into this room like that. And then, with these brilliant machines, they start to improve it. When it comes out at this end, it's beginning to get there. Can you see? Yeah, it's a bit of a transformation, isn't it? That is then taken over to this machine. Now those bobbins are spinning round, and the cotton is being wound onto them, ready to be taken upstairs for the weaving. And you know Dire Straits had a song, The Walk of Life. This is the walk, walking with the machine. Because before it was all mechanical like this, it was a bit risky. In fact, quite a lot of people lost their head. What? You want to know where they lived? They lived it. I'll show you. This is where they lived. It's a bit of a hike, actually, from the mill. Down there, the old school still being used, and these are the cottages, the old mill cottages. Families living in there, 13 or so, and the top half, and probably the bottom half rented out to a single person, so crammed full of people. And you know that walk of life fact? Is that absolutely true? Because I didn't know that. That's fascinating. You made the video once and you used some footage of people. The whole truth and nothing like the truth. That's what it's like working with you. Well, talking of the walk of life, when you come to the end of your life, here at the co-op, as was, behind there, a laying out board. I know, you'd take it, it'd fold out, and that's what you'd lay the deceased upon. Hopefully, you didn't die at the same time as anyone else, because they only had one board. It is private here, but we have got permission just to quickly have a look in here. Look, a little back ginnel. And what does this remind you of? Coronation Street. What? That's where the cat comes down at the beginning. Yeah, well, very, very similar, I must say. But the advantage of being out here was you got a bit of greenery. You could grow veg and things like that. In the city, it'd just be rows and rows and rows of these things. Right, what do you want to see now? How the machinery in the mill works. We've just walked all the way. Right. Well, it works like this, really. That's one enormous water wheel, which is being driven by water. It's a suspension wheel, which means it's a bit like a bicycle wheel, only quite a lot bigger. Anyway, the cogs come round and they turn a smaller wheel down there, which sends a drive shaft through here, which turns that wheel. And that wheel, in turn, turns that wheel, which sends power up that shaft, up into the mill. But you'd have to see it from the top, really. And you can see the way the power comes up through the mill. And you can run all sorts of machines off it, you see. Just put simple little loop around a wheel like that, and it'll spin anything you want with a great big governor on the top. Now, this is all terribly... This is a governor. You give it a spin like that, it'll go higher and higher and higher and higher. Well, it'll go higher and higher and higher. Because this is terribly complicated, they have a very simple model for people like yourself, who are very simple. The river runs down here, you put in a little weir, holds back some of the water, you build a canal which is under the mill is about here, right? I let the water down this canal, this channel there. The wheel spins. Hallelujah. Close it again, and it's stuck. What? Ah, well, yes. Well, this is designed to show you how little water you need to turn a very large wheel, I think. And actually, it's awfully hard to stop it. Hold it back, and it's off again. There you go, you see. What? You want to know what they did in their rest time? Well, I'll show you. Right, that's it. Lunch break over. Back on your heads. They didn't have an awful lot, but they did have a bit, so I'll show you. Well, that's where they spent some of the spare time. At church. In fact, there are a couple of churches on the site. They didn't do things by half, did they? I mean, you've got one business, and they build all those houses, a couple of churches, and everything else. You've even got a pub up the road. So on the one hand, on your day off, you had a bit of bending the knee, and on the other hand, you had going for a bit of a bevy. And of course, on your left hand, you had nothing, because they wouldn't let you use your left hand, so they tied it up your back until you learnt how to use your right hand. Oh yeah, if you didn't use your left hand, you wouldn't be able to speak, would you? Should try that. Where are the sheep? What sheep? What's it got to do with sheep? Cotton doesn't come from sheep. It comes from bushes in faraway lands. Buds that burst open with fluffy stuff inside, very prickly. We shipped it across. We controlled the people that picked it. Shipped it over here. We had the perfect climate. Manchester was the best place. Cottonopolis, it was known as. Sheep. These centres were all over. Coal mines, steel works, villages built up around industry. Those that did, and those that ordered them what to do. So get the pints in. Your left hand's tied up your back. We'll get your money out with your right hand then. Use your teeth.
Dean Johnson and Joanne Liebler take us through the steps of some common stair problems in Home Time. That's coming up at 12:15.